And I can just say something about me living under a rock.
Yeah, which would be true, which would be factually correct. I have been to his house. He's Patrick Starfish. Round of applause, ladies and gentlemen.
I have no idea who Patrick Starfish is.
Patrick Star.
Well, okay, so I suppose that proves the point.
SpongeBob. SpongeBob's best mate.
Hey. Good morning and welcome to Legal Beagles. I am your host, Alex. This is my offsider, Callum, and he is usually quite offside and generally quite off-colour as well. Today he's made an effort with flamingos, but I don't think it really suits him. But either way, today we are going to be talking about one of the more prevalent industrial relations issues that is appearing in the media. That being the notion of wage theft or wage non-compliance. Now, this is an area where the divide between what the media is saying and what the law and enforcement agencies are actually doing and what the law actually says around it are two quite different things. First of all is the notion of wage theft in and of itself. Now, Callum, what image is conjured up in your mind if I use the term wage theft?
Well, the classic example is 7-Eleven from a couple of years ago. You had in the 7-Eleven cases some franchisees who were getting they were paying employees correctly and then getting them to pay back part of their paycheck into a separate bank account. I mean, no reasonable person can look at that and think that that's okay, that they're not doing something wrong there, you know? So it's this feeling, this intense feeling that you're not doing something right, or literally reaching into to an employee's, you know, if you're paying in cash, taking cash back. There's all sorts of images that come to mind when you think wage theft.
It is perhaps a concept that is oversimplified and potentially greatly misunderstood. So, of course, when we think of the concept of wage theft, the image that comes to mind is a burglar in a mask creeping into the house in the dead of night and stealing the cash out of an employee's wallet. That is the image that is conjured by the expression, but it is somewhat more complicated than that. But certainly we here, I know that you and I, and certainly others of our ilk, draw a distinction between...
That's a good way, that's a nice way to describe it, our ilk. Our ilk being, of course, Australia's leading workplace advisors to the retail and service industries.
Don't blow your own trumpet.
Trademark.
Regardless, there is a distinction that we like to draw between wage theft and wage non-compliance. The concept of wage theft takes what is effectively a multi-faceted issue, a very broad issue, and reduces it down to two words that do not necessarily provide the whole picture.
It's a buzzword at this point. It really is, you know?
Unfortunately, yes.
Yeah.
But realistically, Callum, how did it get to this?
Yeah.
Why is it so far in the public domain at the moment? Because as you're well aware, I have no idea what is going on in the world around me.
Well, I am aware of that. I am acutely aware of that. But I will spare you the 10-year history lesson on the origins of the Fair Work Act. But really, I think where it started was 7-Eleven a couple of years ago. You can't escape it. And that's where we heard the stories about employers, franchisees, you know, getting staff to pay back parts of their paycheck. And that, I mean, no one in their right mind is going to make an excuse for that conduct. It's deplorable, right? Absolutely deplorable. But since that time, public interest has grown. Employers have come to understand the systems that we've had in place more readily, more deeply, and through the processes of internal audits, they've come to detect that they've got some problems. And the vast majority of the big cases that we see in the media are as a result of internal auditing. It's not because, for the most part, it's not because an employee is running off to the media or the ombudsman and saying, I think I've been underpaid, or the ombudsman sending inspectors into workplaces. That certainly does happen, but most of the big players are doing their own checking, and as a result of that process, which they don't have to do under the current system, and as a result of that process, they've uncovered issues. And a great example of that is old mate George Columbaris, which is, I think...
Who?
Old mate.
No, Leah lost me. Please explain.
Celebrity chef and restaurant entrepreneur George Columbaris.
Oh, it's a food thing. Of course, I would have ignored it.
Why did you ignore it again, Alex? Tell me about your relationship with food.
You know I have no sense of taste.
So it's not just art and music, it's also food.
It's
You heard it
everything.
here first. So that's how we got here, right? Started with 7-Eleven. Big companies took a long, hard look at themselves and now discovered that they weren't, it wasn't just small businesses to blame. That's how we got here. But back to your point, why is wage theft an oversimplification of that term? Of George Columbaris, why is wage theft an oversimplification of his problem?
Well, if we look at the maid establishment, or as I gather
So his
most people
business,
know
George's
it,
business.
the George Columbaris issue, there are two things that stand out to my mind as being misstatements or oversimplifications of the issue. First of those is that the assertion by some media outlets that non-compliance was part of maid establishment's business model.
Yeah.
Now, there is nothing to indicate that that is the case. As I understand it from the material that on the matter that has been released by the Fair Work Ombudsman and by maid establishment, they started conducting audits sometime before 2017 internally, which uncovered problems, which they then disclosed to the Ombudsman in 2017. Further audits then resulted in the disclosure and the enforceable undertaking that was entered into in 2019 by the business with the Fair Work Ombudsman. Now, this process that has been years in a business, first of all, like taking a long, hard look at itself, then self-reporting to the regulator, and then voluntarily entering into an enforcement mechanism. This is not the hallmark of a business that relies as a business model on being non-compliant.
But if I'm an employee, what difference does it make to me? If I'm working for an employer who asks me to pay back a portion of my paycheck versus an employer who isn't paying me enough in the first place, what's the difference to me as an employee?
Fundamentally intent. At least if you're working for a business that doesn't intend to get it wrong, when they realize that they have got it wrong, you can be reasonably rest assured that it will be made good.
Yeah. And you touched on a really good point there, because what a really key difference is, and one thing that the media has got wrong consistently, is that George has been taken to court over this issue. In fact, this whole process, entering into an enforceable undertaking, has been to avoid that. So why don't you explain what that exchange looks like a little bit more?
Well, the concept of an enforceable undertaking, it is effectively a contract given statutory force under the Fair Work Act.
Yeah.
It is an agreement that between a business and the Fair Work Ombudsman, it is offered to the Ombudsman by the business to say, if we agree to do these things, will you please not take us to court?
That's right. So George went to the Ombudsman with terms that he was prepared to agree to.
And the Ombudsman accepted them. Now, included in that was an offer to make a $200,000 contrition payment to the Commonwealth Treasury. That was an offer by Mr. Columbaris' business. It was not a fine strictly imposed on him by a judicial mechanism.
Yeah, it's almost like a negotiation on any other kind of contract. So the allegation that he's been taken to court over this issue is just factually incorrect. The allegation that he's been fined over this is also factually incorrect. The whole purpose of this process has been to remedy the situation and to mitigate the risk of the business being taken to court. Now, if we compare that to a business which, like the 7-Eleven cases, who a lot of whom I think outrightly have been accused of wage theft.
And have been taken to court.
That's right, they have been taken to court, and the court has imposed penalties. That's not what's happened here, and not what's happened with a lot of these major players who have essentially found themselves in this position inadvertently almost. Now, of course, that's not a defence, and that's readily apparent by the fact that George has had to pay, or his company's had to pay, this huge contrition payment. So if I'm a business, right, I'm in this position, I want to make sure that I'm not going to find myself, having to either go to court or enter into a enforceable undertaking. What do I do?
Well, the bottom line is check your systems, check your payroll processes, check your staff are classified correctly, that they're employed under the correct industrial instrument, And if you're in any way, shape, or form unsure, get some help.
Yeah, I mean, it's not the, multi-million-dollar businesses don't make these mistakes just because they aren't paying close enough attention. This is not easy. It's very, very hard. And there's a reason why, in a lot of these cases, employees didn't identify the issues. It was the employer looking at themselves. So it's not easy. And if you don't know the answer, as Alex said, ask for help.
There is never any shame in asking for help in these circumstances. And almost certainly, if you are a business and you have, in any way, shape, or form, some concerns, it is indeed in your interests to seek some help. Now, of course, members of the National Retail Association can seek this assistance by calling 1-800-RETAIL or 1-800-738-245 to speak to either Callum, myself, or any one of our colleagues to provide you with this advice.
He especially likes it when you refer to him as Al on the telephone. He likes that a lot.
You do, you die.
That concludes this episode of Legal Beagles. As always, tell us what you think in the comments, or as Alex said, if you are really concerned about this or about any other sorts of issues and you want to have a chat, feel free to give us a call or reach out. More than happy to chat with you about anything we've discussed today. Thanks very much as always.
And it's a good night from me, and it's good night from him. But a good night.
It's 12 o'clock.
It's a Two Ronnies reference, for f***'s sake.